The Mad Fictional Imagination Playhouse presents The White Reaper by Rhyan Scorpio-Rhys. In the dark hours before dawn, when the world balanced on the edge of silence, they came. Not with the ominous flutter of wings or the toll of heavy bells, but with the faintest whisper of wind. It moved through the trees like a secret too fragile for mortal ears. The White Reaper emerged from the mist, as if conjured by the breath of the world itself. A figure half-formed from dreams, and yet fully real. Unlike the deathly figures conjured by fearful imagination, the White Reaper bore no scythe, no skeletal grin beneath a shadowed hood. Their form was draped in robes of swirling white, woven from threads that seemed to shift and ripple as though the fabric was alive, part of the mist itself. They moved with the quiet inevitability of a tide rolling onto a shore, neither swift nor slow, neither kind nor cruel. Just there as they always were when the time called. Their face remained hidden in shadow, an abyss no living eye could penetrate. And yet, those who glimpsed them long enough swore they saw something within, not horror but peace, as though the veil that separated the living from the dead also concealed a truth too vast to comprehend. The forest shivered at their passing. Bare branches stood still as sentinels, their spindly silhouettes sharp against the pale moonlight. Hoarfrost clung to the air like tiny shards of glass, glittering in the faint glow, and the great white steed beneath the reaper stirred no sound, its hooves leaving no trace in the frost-bitten earth. Their destination was never far. It never was. At the edge of the forest, a small village slept, its cottages huddled together like travellers seeking warmth against the cold. In one of these homes, where the fire had burned down to a bed of glowing embers, an old man lay in a bed of rough-spun sheets. His breaths were shallow, uneven, a rhythm that faltered like the last notes of a fading song. The illness that had come for him was relentless, though kind enough to grant him time to reflect. Alone in his final days, he had thought often of the life he had lived, the nights when his wife's laughter had filled their home like sunlight spilling through the cracks. The afternoons spent teaching his daughter to fish by the stream, her small hands gripping the line with a determination that mirrored his own. And the mornings when he had risen early to bake bread, the smell of it filling the house as his young son darted about, eager for the first bite. But those moments had passed, carried away like leaves in an autumn wind. His wife had gone before him, and his children, grown, busy and scattered, were too far away to see the embers of his life flicker out. He had prayed for the end to come swiftly, but death had not yet answered. Not until now. The White Reaper entered the cottage without a sound. The door remained closed, yet the mist seeped in, curling around the room like a gentle embrace. The firelight flickered briefly, as if bowing to the presence that now filled the space. The old man stirred. Though he could not see the Reaper, he felt their arrival in the shift of the air, in the way the ache in his chest seemed to ease, the weight on his heart lifting. His breathing slowed, each inhale lighter, each exhale longer, until it was no longer a struggle but a release. The Reaper extended a hand, gloved in the same ethereal fabric as their robes. There was no scythe to sever his soul from its vessel, no violent rending of life and flesh. The gesture was simple, and yet it carried with it the promise of peace. For a moment the old man hesitated. The body below him, the frail shell he had inhabited for so many years, looked small, insignificant. But as his spirit began to rise, translucent and weightless, he understood. This was not an ending. It was merely a passage, a door he had always known he would one day walk through. The Reaper's shadowed gaze met his, and though no words were spoken, understanding passed between them. Death was not a thief, not a cruel hand tearing life away. Death was a guide, an usher at the threshold, patient and gentle. The old man gave a small nod and placed his hand in theirs. Together, they stepped into the mist, leaving the cottage and the quiet embers behind. The frost-laden forest parted for them, its trees bowing slightly, as if acknowledging the passage of something sacred. Beyond the woods, the veil shimmered faintly, and through it the old man glimpsed a world he could not have imagined, a place of light and endless horizons, of quiet promises fulfilled. In the village, life stirred but did not wake. A young mother turned in her sleep, her baby nestled close against her chest, while a candle flickered briefly in a nearby window. None knew of the passing that had just occurred, yet the air seemed lighter, as though the earth itself had exhaled in relief. The White Reaper rode on through the mist, their figure fading into the whispering frost, ever patient, ever waiting. For another soul would soon call to them, as all must when the time was right. And when that moment came, the Reaper would be there, not with fear but with grace. Not with darkness but with light. A quiet promise whispered on the wind. Peace at last awaits.